Ko Rapini Henerai, tēnā koe.
Tēnā koe, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for this opportunity. I rise to speak on the third reading on the sale and supply of alcohol, display of low alcohol beverages and other remedial matters amendment bill. And just as the member, Mr. Bishop, leaves the House, sir, he spoke about the facts around the drinking culture. Well, what we do know is just recently, sir, you may be aware there was a thing called Crate Day. Crate Day, and I'm sure Mr. Bishop was one who trotted down to the local liquor outlet and grabbed him probably a crate of tui. He looks like a tui man. You know, probably one of the lighter beers out on the market, but I have no doubt Mr. Bishop would have trotted down to the liquor store, grabbed a crate, probably joined some friends, probably of the same age bracket, and he would have indulged in a crate of beer. Now, post-Crate Day, hospitals across the country, in Waikato, in my electorate of Tāmaki Makaurau, made it very clear that Crate Day had to go, that outlets who advertise such a day like Crate Day are actually causing great harm in communities. They are saying that the A&E in Waikato Hospital, in Auckland Hospital, were inundated with people of all ages who were completely intoxicated, who had to have stomachs pumped, who had serious risks of choking on their own vomit. Some of them got violent towards the staff in the A&E that were there to help them. Doctors, nurses, ambulance drivers and officers. Sir, this is the culture we're talking about. If the member wants to refer to some facts, I suggest he listen to those who are at the front line of dealing with some of these issues, not simply reading a report on the internet. But sir, we do rise on this side of the House to support this bill. The member mentioned some of the, his words were oversights. Actually, the words we want to use on this side of the House are unintended consequences. We seem to be coming back into the House rather regularly of late, mentioning unintended consequences, which is to the point that my esteemed colleague here, Mr. Sua William Seal, mentioned about the need to make legislation that's transformative, that actually goes all of the way or goes further than what this bill intends to do, to making sure that we protect our communities while also offering the opportunity for our members of the community to enjoy an alcoholic beverage, sir. So one of the parts of this bill actually says that, you know, without overexposing the general public to alcohol or alcohol beverages in the aisleway at your local supermarket, now this particular bill will allow them to be all situated in the one place. And that's common sense. That just makes sense to us. Why would you walk down with your child? I've got young children myself, sir, holding their hand, walking down the aisle. If they're not dragging me to the confectionery aisle, they certainly spot out the drinks and they know what they are. So this kind of a bill is a common sense, smart way forward. Does it address all of the harms of alcohol? Probably not. It does tidy up, however, some of the unintended consequences, or in the words of Mr. Bishop, oversights. Oversights from the 2012 legislation, sir. The rest, technical amendments, we understand that. The definition of a working day, the minister in place of Minister Amy Adams described that well enough. We won't labour that point, but what it does do is it actually just tidies up and makes it very clear for the general public the definition of the working day. Sir, my colleague Mr. Sua William Seal talked about the ability to gain an on licence or an off licence or a special licence. And it talks about the ability for those companies who qualify under the Companies Registers Act will be able to do that, and they are able to gain an on licence or an off licence. And I mentioned in earlier debates on this particular bill, sir, how I understand that, but if you look at the kinds of companies that qualify under that particular act, one has to wonder, well, why would we allow such open access to on-licence or off-licence? We made that point throughout the process of this bill. I understand that for the purposes of events and for the supply of alcohol to consumers, I understand that. But let's be very clear. In opening it up to the Companies Act, what we're actually saying is, in that definition, we are allowing a wide range of companies access to this. And that's a concern to me. That is a concern to me. It touches on some of the points that Mr. Sua William-Seal spoke about with regard to our vulnerable communities. Companies in vulnerable communities exploiting a bill such as this by gaining an on-licence or applying for an on-licence or an off-licence to supply alcohol. And that's a concern. That's a concern in my electorate of Tāmaki Makaurau, across my colleagues' electorates here, and other, of course, in the great township of Onehunga. But that is a concern, and my fear, sir, is that when we are able to have a review at some point in time, and hopefully the near future, we'll look back at this, see what kind of companies who have applied for these types of licenses, and we're able to get some data that will inform us. And I'm going to pick, sir, that it's going to actually tell us that maybe we gave far too much room here, far too much scope for companies to be able to apply for this. So those are some of the concerns we have, sir. Of course, we do support this bill. Like I said, they're sensible steps forward. We understand that. And we're more than happy to support the bill into legislation. But my final closing point, sir, I do just want to express our disappointment in the fact that this particular bill just doesn't quite go far enough, doesn't meet the recommendations of the experts and those who are able to crunch the data that Mr. Bishop refers to, who made clear recommendations that major overhauls and reform was needed in this particular space. But for now, sir, in the third reading, we'll support this bill. Kia ora tātou katoa.